welcome everybody. We will call the August meeting of the Wood County Board of Supervisors to order at this time. I would ask the supervisors to please sign in and the clerk to take the roll. I need Supervisor Clendenning, Supervisor Wagner.
And we're back from them.
Okay.
Does that mean they're not here?
Don't jam the chair.
It doesn't let you sign in.
That's third one.
Chairman Brian, how are you today, sir? Okay.
There we go, and then we have Supervisor Fisher, who has been excused today. At this point in time, I would call on Supervisor Roser to come up for the invocation. If I could ask the body to please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So if you so desire, please join me in prayer. Lord of heaven and earth, we come before you this morning thanking you for our many blessings and for the privilege of participating in the governing process. Our hearts are heavy with the evil evidenced over the past days in our country. We pray for the injured individuals and for their families as they cope with tragic circumstances. We pray for government leaders at every level of government. We pray for their safety, for wisdom, discernment, and guidance as challenging situations that need attention are deliberated and decisions made. Go with those present this morning as we face our own challenges and deliberate the issues before us. We appreciate your loving spirit in this room today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is a motion to accept the minutes of the previous session. I have a motion by Hamilton, a second by Fire. Any discussion on the minutes? Any discussion? Supervisor Ashbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed when we bought that highway vote back up last month for, we vote on it, that Supervisor Ockham voted on it, and we were supposed to have vote on it, but I mean the second the motion, we were supposed to have somebody that was opposed to it. I heard, well, Bill Clendenning would have made the second on it, but yeah, Mary Ann Ockham has the one, and she supported, she wasn't against the motion when it was voted on. Is that true?
I don't recall. Yeah, only the main motion needs to be made by a person on the side that prevailed. The second is irrelevant. Yeah, in other words, anybody could make the second.
Oh, okay. I was told that it would have to be somebody that was opposed to it.
Only the person who made the main motion. Thank you.
Good enough.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Supervisor. Excusals today, as noted on the screen, we have Supervisor Fisher. Resignations today, we have none. Appointments today, we have a couple of those, and that is Supervisor Holcamp to the Wood County Library 5-year Long-Range Planning Committee, and Matt Souza to the Ethics Committee, replacing former employee Brittany Boyer. I have a motion by Zerflu, a second by Lightnum. Any discussion on those appointments? Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And that motion carries unanimously. Do I have anybody here from the Air National Guard? Anybody here from the Air National Guard? Okay, we'll catch them later then if they get in. At this point in time, we'll go to public comment. As in the past, I see we have a lot of people here today. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes. We'll have a timer on the board, and you'll be able to see that, so I will make sure that's a nice little tool to have because I don't have to interrupt you and tell you there's 10 seconds left or something, but we will cut those people off at the 3-minute level because we do have a lot of people in the room. What I'd ask you to do is go up to the microphone in the center of the room, state your name, and then proceed with your 3 minutes of comment. So, public comment today.
I'm happy to go first. Is the mic on?
Now let's make sure that's on.
Should be green. Testing.
You're good.
On? Okay, thank you. So my name is Mark Borkart. I am the founder of 80 Feet is Enough and the author of the resolution on eminent domain that you are considering today. My home is located on Highway Y west of Marshfield. I've lived there for 23 years, and I hope to live there another 23 more. Enbridge controls an 80-foot wide easement across my property. That 80-foot wide easement is across the entire length of Wisconsin. In the 23 years that we've lived in our house, we've gone from 1 pipeline to now 4 pipelines. And through those 4 pipelines is 2.2 million barrels of oil per day underneath my property, about 15 to 20% of U.S. energy demand. The Enbridge easement is full. You can't put any more pipelines in there. They have filled it to the brim. 4. For their next expansion, Enbridge needs more land. We are saying 80 feet is enough. We are asking you to support reform of Wisconsin's eminent domain statutes to prohibit the use of eminent domain by for-profit oil pipeline companies. When Enbridge uses eminent domain, as they have multiple times in the state, this is not the same as building a highway. This doesn't meet the criterion of public use that's stated in the 5th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. And Enbridge is not a public utility. They are a limited partnership in this country. We are not asking you to take a stand against pipelines or against oil. We are asking you to support leveling the playing field, supporting the free market. You take away the big club that Enbridge has with eminent domain, that means we can negotiate fairly. Now, what's Enbridge going to say today? They're going to say that they can provide jobs. They're going to argue that they supply 100% of the oil for the refineries in Wisconsin. They always use the plural, refineries. There's only one refinery in Wisconsin. They will argue that pipelines are safer than rail. You will hear their supporters say that they're nice people, that they give our departments fire trucks. And Enbridge will say they have no plans for immediate expansion. I've only got 3 minutes. I can't rebut all those, although I just asked Scott Suter that I'd be happy to debate him in public about those points. Very happy to debate him about those points. But really, all of these are digressions, they're side arguments. The real issue here is the abuse of eminent domain for private gain. I would ask Mr. Suter to present a clear and cogent argument of how forcible land takings by his company complies and is consistent with the takings clause of the 5th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Your decision today can be distilled to 2 questions. 2 questions. First, are you, as elected representatives, for or are you against a private company having the power to forcibly take Wood County citizens' land against their will? Second, in our representative democracy, who do you represent?
That's time.
Do you represent us, the landowners, or do you represent a $44 billion company?
That's
Your vote
time.
today is about not the merits of oil pipelines, it's about restoring American property rights. Please vote yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here to present a different perspective. My name is Jerry Miner. I'm the chief of the Pittsville Fire Company, and I've been part of the emergency services in this county since 1978. I'm also representing the Wood County Fire Chiefs Association, who make up 21 different fire and emergency agencies in this county. The purpose of my comments are to make you aware of the benefits that we have been provided by our partner, and yes, partner, of our neighbor, Enbridge Energies. This response is to bring a different light into the resolution that you're going to discuss. I'm not here to dispute the issues of eminent domain, which is certainly outside my area of expertise. We would like, however, to let you know as government officials and as taxpayers the many programs, capabilities, and financial assistance that has been and continues to be a part of our partnership with Enbridge.
Partnerships, which is a new buzzword this century, is an extremely critical part of what we do. We partner with lots of different organizations. Many dollars and many hours have been put into the design of a pipeline system and training as well to respond to an incident if there should ever be one. All of this locally provided by Enbridge. Our ability as first responders have been enhanced by the financial support of safety grants provided by this company. Transportation via pipeline of crude oil as well as other products is still by far the safest method that we have. Could you personally imagine the amount of truck transports it would take to transport the same amount of product that is sent by pipeline? I know we certainly could not afford it. They in turn make their equipment, personnel, and technology available to our agencies in the event we have an incident related to a spill that is not an Enbridge incident. And I'll give you one example of this that happened to us. On June 16th, 2015 at 4 a.m., a call came into the Wood County Dispatch Center, a tanker of gasoline that had crashed on County Road A north of my city. The driver was pinned in the cab, the truck was loaded with 8,000 gallons of gasoline and was leaning on a utility pole belonging to Alliant Energy. Multiple calls went out to our fire department partners, including Enbridge, for assistance. The Enbridge response was very simple. What do you need and where can we send it? This event had nothing to do with them, but their response was one that was critical to the outcome of this call. That's what partnerships are all about. They are a critical, absolutely critical part of what we do today. We as first responder agencies could simply not throw the amount of resources at an incident such as this without their assistance. Therefore, we would ask you to evaluate the benefits of this organization, benefits that are provided to each of us in this county, as well as to the state of Wisconsin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman and Supervisors, thank you for allowing us the time to speak today. My name is Brian Rush. I sat at the table 50 years ago as a pipeline agent and told my parents that they could either accept $187 or the property would be condemned and they would get nothing. Great choice, right? Well, today I'm here to talk about fair market value. I'm in the real estate business. The definition, according to Wikipedia, is the highest estimated price that a buyer would pay and a seller would accept for an item in an open and competitive market. Now, Enbridge likes to assure politicians not to worry that they are required to pay fair market value. But is what they pay under eminent domain condemnation rights really fair for both parties? Let's take a look. There are a lot of similarities between corporate giant Foxconn, who plans on building a $20 million square foot manufacturing site in southeast Wisconsin, and Enbridge. They both are for-profit corporations who answer to their stockholders. Neither have been commissioned by our government, nor has the government told them that they had to build a manufacturing plant, or in this case, an oil pipeline serving not the Midwest markets, but rather Asian markets. They are doing these projects under their own free wills. In a Milwaukee Sentinel article several weeks ago, Foxconn estimated it would negotiate purchase settlements upwards of $100,000 to $115,000 per acre for the property they would be building upon, while the average prices of that farmland is between $8,000 and $10,000. True fair market forces are at work here, and both buyer and seller walk away happy campers. Buyers get what they want, as does the seller. The true value then is $100,000 per acre based on the definition of fair market value. Eminent domain condemnation rights are not needed, nor should they have been. Here's another example very close to home. Enbridge has a pumping station south of Esper. Enbridge recently paid $1.8 million for a 180-acre property next to their pumping station, while the average selling price in the area is no more than $2,000 an acre. $10,000 an acre. They didn't have the condemnation rights. True market value by definition then is $10,000 per acre for this particular transaction. Remember, the definition of market value, the highest estimated price that a buyer would pay and the seller would accept for an item in an open and competitive market. Eminent domain condemnation rights deny landowners the very definition of fair market value. We are humbly asking our fellow Wood County citizens and supervisors to have our backs on this one. We breathe, work, worship, and raise our families together.
We are here for each other every day. Please allow true market forces to play out here. Enbridge condemnation rights on our properties should be denied. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me come and speak to you today. My name is Margie Hansen. I built my home about 30 years ago on a little over 4 acres in the town of Lincoln. I knew about the 80-foot easement. It was already on the property. I didn't have any problem with it. I'm not against pipelines, although I do wonder about the question why we would allow a private foreign company to put pipelines through the United States. I'm a concerned tax-paying homeowner, not an activist. The current pipeline cuts diagonally through my property like this. My home and attached garage is on the east half of that triangle, and my well, my 26 by 28 extra garage, my power lines, and my water lines are on the west half. What I have heard that is Enbridge will be, although they're saying not, that they are going to need an additional anywhere from 100 to 300 feet. That takes away that west side. And yes, they'll replace it. The last time they came through, it was 4 summers before I could use my backyard because of all the clay, and nobody would bring in the proper dirt to grow the grass back. The values, I've been a realtor for 37 years, a full-time realtor for 37 years. I have not listed a home or sold a home within a few miles of my home or the pipeline. Why? That's nuts for a realtor. Because I cannot honestly represent a home owner to sell their home, and I would feel deceitful selling it to a buyer and have to deal with these circumstances. The values of our homes are already hindered by the existing 80 feet. I knew that, I accept that, that's fine. But this beautiful area, just 3 miles west of the city of Marshfield, where many people bicycle, that area, we have prices of homes and price ranges of 150 to probably 600,000 or more. I think if more land is taken, I believe our values will sink. It's going to be hard to sell our properties to anyone else. Not that I plan to sell. I planted hundreds of trees physically myself. I plan to retire there. I want to stay there. I raised my children, and now I have my grandchildren there. This is about property rights. I paid taxes for 30 years, taken great pride in caring for my home, and it's Woods County's turn to get my back and my neighbor's back, to watch our back. Please, put yourselves in my shoes.
Thank you.
My name is Keith Merkman. I'm from Marshfield. I find it heartening that this board, including many of you present today, voted for a resolution in 2014 requesting that the DNR required an environmental impact statement be completed when Enbridge announced plans to triple the amount of oil passing through Line 61. That vote tells me that you realize how serious this topic is. As important as that resolution was, the issue before you today is of far graver concern and consequence to those of us living along the pipeline corridor. Ever since the state legislature tweaked the eminent domain statute to benefit Enbridge, we have been dreading the day that Enbridge comes knocking to ask for more of our land. This is not a Democrat versus Republican issue. It is not an anti-oil issue. And it is not a not in my backyard issue. We already are saddled with an 80-foot wide right-of-way in our backyards. We are doing more than our fair share to support the oil industry. This effort is about trying to keep what we have now and not losing any more land against our will. And that is why I declare that 80 feet is enough. In an April 10, 2017 appearance on CNBC, Enbridge CEO Al Monaco stated that Enbridge investors were forecast to receive a 10 to 12% annual dividend. Well, you know what? We are invested in Enbridge too. Our investments lie in the land that has been given up for the pipes to pass through, without which Enbridge cannot operate. And for that, we receive nothing but reduced property use, reduced property values, and the ever-present possibility of a spill that could pollute our water, poison our soil, and sicken our families, pets, and farm animals. In that same interview, Al Monaco declares that Enbridge must make sure that we're focused on what we do best safety, reliability, and environmental protection. Now, I'm not in favor of more pipelines, but there is another option for Enbridge that doesn't include taking people's property. If Al Monaco is sincere about his environmental protection statement, he can prove it by replacing the nearly 50-year-old Line 6A in the current right-of-way. Because the easements are open-ended, meaning that they last forever, replacing Line 6A would eliminate the need for the use of eminent domain because no new lands would need to be acquired. This would also provide environmental protection because thousands of acres of forests, woodlots, and wetlands, as well as many homes and other buildings, would be spared from destruction. Yes, it will take time and great care to remove safely, but safety is also one of Monaco's top priorities. This is a viable option that should not be dismissed out of hand. Yes, Enbridge will lose revenue while the line is being replaced, but why should we be overly concerned about the profits of a multi-billion-dollar foreign company when nearly 200 of our fellow Wood County families now stand to lose more of their property rights and values, even their homes, to that same company? This is truly a David versus Goliath issue. We don't have unlimited funds to hire lobbyists to present our case. All we have is each other, along with our shared stories, our frustrations, and our fears, and our hope and trust that you will help us. Please vote yes for the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Fred Parker, and my wife and I own property in Nakusa, Wisconsin, and we have an 80-foot section of Enbridge easement through our property, which we agreed to when we bought the property. We knew that would be there, and it would be there in perpetuity. I appreciate the Wood County Board taking time to listen to our concerns. When this meeting began, I was moved by the invocation that was given, and as well by the way we pledged allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And it made me think a little bit about our Declaration of Independence, which is really the founding document to our country. And in that, there is an appeal made to the almighty and inalienable rights that we derive, not from government, but from the Almighty. And with that in mind, and part of that Declaration of Independence implicitly speaks of inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness being among them. Well, earlier drafts of the Declaration of Independence talked about life, liberty, and property. And so fundamental to the founding of this country is the idea of private property rights. And that's really what's at issue here. Some of the other people who have spoken or will speak know much greater about the details of the eminent domain law here in Wisconsin, as well as the proposals for Enbridge and all of that. But fundamentally, what is at issue are the private property rights of American citizens, and should the coercive arm of government be used by a private corporation, foreign or domestic, for their own personal gain at the expense of the private property rights, the fundamental rights of citizens of the United States. To me, that is the core issue, and that's what should be most seriously considered as you think through this issue. And I was disappointed to hear that the state government, apparently, maybe in ignorance, maybe not, was able to push through an amendment to our eminent domain law at the state level to allow for private corporations to eminent domain, using, again, the coercive arm of government. And I hope you guys are really on the other side and would say that is inappropriate. We will stand with private property rights. We'll stand with the founders of our nation. We'll stand with the Constitution, and will not allow an abuse of the eminent domain privilege that's in the Constitution of the United States. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time. My name is Pat Nelson, and I am here to support Enbridge. I live here in Wood County, Wisconsin Rapids area for almost 25 years now. I'm here speaking as a resident of Wood County, but I work construction and have been a member of IUOE, Operating Engineers Local 139 for 33 very proud years. I encourage everybody on the board to vote against this resolution. I was born in Superior, Wisconsin. I can look out my bedroom window and look at the Bay of Lake Superior. Growing up with the lake so near, I have a great fondness for the big lake, and I am very concerned about our water and environment. My grandma's house was less than a mile from the refinery and tank farm. My aunt and uncle's house was even closer. You can see the Enbridge tank farm and the tank farm is even closer now after years of expansion. My aunt still lives in her house and has never had one incident with Enbridge. I lived here in Wisconsin Rapids almost 25 years now and Lake Superior. I wouldn't want anything to happen to our environment here either. With that being said, Enbridge is a very safety-oriented and conscientious company, as I have witnessed in the times I have dealt with them in the field and from my experiences living in Superior. Pipelines are much safer than trains or tanker trucks. They have a substantial business presence right here in Wisconsin, with the tank farm in Superior and the many miles of pipeline running throughout the state. They also have pump stations they maintain along the pipeline, with at least 2 right here in Wood County, keeping Wood County residents employed in good family-sustaining jobs, along with all the other construction workers, contractors, and suppliers needed to maintain and build this infrastructure. These construction workers, contractors, and suppliers, gas stations, motels, restaurants, supply houses, and whatever else may be needed, just like you and me, voters, taxpayers, your neighbors, and some are even operating engineers like me. If you make working here in Wisconsin cost prohibitive for utilities or energy companies, the people that suffer are all of us in the form of increased pricing for things we need, like electricity and gasoline. The rates Enbridge charges for the transportation of oil in their pipelines are set forth by the Federal Energy Regulation Commission. Most utilities and energy companies operating in Wisconsin are for profit, so the focus of profit is misguided. We Energies, formerly WPS, Alliant Energy, Koch Brothers Pipeline, and tank farms are all for profit. Eminent domain is not automatic, much like a utility company. Enbridge has to get approval from the Public Service Commission. Remember back in the mid-90s here in Wisconsin Rapids when DOT moved Highway 34 to accommodate highway or paper machine number 16? I venture to guess that if we would not have been approved, Wisconsin Rapids may not have a paper company here right now. Then what will we do? All be doing for jobs and tax revenue. What if the legislature starts messing with eminent domain? Okay. I encourage you all to vote this resolution down.
Apologize, I'm making notes here too, so hit me or yell or something. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tom Hinke. I've been living for 38 years in Wood County. I live up in the northwest corner in Lincoln Township. I'm here today to oppose granting this easement. I live right next to the pipeline. My home is 75 feet away from the pipeline, so I see it out my window all the time, and I see across it to my forest. I'm opposed to this new easement request. I should point out a couple of things that have already been mentioned. Easements are forever. This isn't something that's going to go away when I move or when I sell my property. If this easement is granted, and I have to sell my property with the additional easement on it. I own the property. I pay the taxes on the property, yet I cannot use it. I can't build on it. I can't do anything with it. It's just there. And I continue to pay the taxes on it. Enbridge pays taxes only on the pipeline itself for the oil that goes through it. They don't pay for the land. There is no rent or usage fee paid by Enbridge for using my property and putting it at risk. I share no profit from the pipeline at all. It'll be a very much more difficult sale when I try to sell my property. I'm retired now. I'm thinking about selling my property. But if this easement goes through and there's 160 feet or 320 feet or whatever it turns out to be, easement on that property, which runs the hypotenuse of this, the longest possible axis across my property, it's going to be nearly impossible for me to sell. Nobody's going to want that. And I'm stuck with it. I think I can sell it if we don't put this additional easement on it. There are several other things I could say, but my time is running out. But I am opposed to this easement. I get no benefit from this. I get no money from it. And yet it's my land that's used, and it's my land that's at risk. And I know there's a risk because my friend, about 2 or 3 years ago, had an oil spill on his property about a half a mile from me. And they could not clean it up. They had to buy his home, and he had to move.
Yes.
Risk is real.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mike Goldberg. My wife and I live in Marshfield. We've been residents there for 18 years. I'm a retired Marshfield physician, and I thank the board for giving me and all these other citizens an opportunity to speak this morning. The current and the whole usage of eminent domain in this country, especially for a foreign and private company, recalls the 19th century robber barons forcing people off the land for profit gain only. And of course, there's a rich Hollywood industry of movies about that, the most recently the remake of Magnificent Seven. So I would urge that you avoid being immortalized in cinema in the future for your grandchildren to watch that you made the wrong choice. And the very important point I've heard no one make yet today, fossil fuels are a dying, spelled D-Y-I-N-G, dying industry. Legitimate, well-studied projections by banks that the sources of capital say that peak oil production is going to hit in 2025, less than 10 years from now, and it's all downhill from there. Renewable energy is growing leaps and bounds and already providing a significant amount of energy production in this country, including in oil-producing states. The biggest are North Dakota, Oklahoma, and Texas. I mean, the fossil fuel industry is the 21st century equivalent of carriage and horse and buggy makers, okay? Do you want to sign on to that? Now, it's axiomatic and provably true, all pipelines leak, and this pipeline will eventually leak. Wisconsin is a national treasure, a national natural resource treasure. This board should rule in favor of this resolution and go beyond it. This board should focus in supporting renewable resources and protecting our national resources for our most precious resource, our children and our grandchildren. And they should focus on training those children, focus on reversing the cuts in education, focus on reversing the cuts in caring for our natural resources. And yeah, tourism and natural resources are a huge part and a huge industry in this state. That's where our efforts and money should be focused on, and I strongly support putting any kind of limits on Enbridge, a foreign private for-profit company, and any other, and doing something about eminent domain. I'm sick of robber barons in this country, and I'm sick of destroying our country, so it's not going to be there for our kids. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Doug Urban. My wife and I married. My wife Mary and I farmed near Millador for 35 years. We got up early in the morning, worked hard, and raised our family there, and then decided to retire from farming and bought a house 7 miles south of Marshfield. And the Enbridge pipeline goes right through the middle of our 10 acres of property there. The pipeline goes very close to our house now, and if there's any expansion, it would take our house away. We would not have a house. It would take our pond. It would take our horse barn that we just built, and it would take a lot of landscaping that the lady that lived there before beautifully designed and planted. We love where we live. We discovered our house while we were cross-country skiing in the Richfield 360 right across the road. We can leave our driveway and get on the cross-country ski trails in the winter. We can hike in the woods in the summer, enjoy the trilliums and wildflowers at Powers Bluff, which is only 5 miles away. We also own property in Pittsville, which is only 15 miles away, so the location is perfect. My wife Mary and I work in Marshfield. It's only 7 miles away. It's very convenient, and it's close to all the county parks that we enjoy. I guess I've lived in the county for 58 years, and I feel that I've paid plenty of property taxes and have really done my fair share of paying taxes, and just believe that this bill should be approved to the eminent domain law should be passed in favor of the landowner. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thanking to all of you for allowing me to speak. My name is Amber Kiggins-Lifehite. I live on the west side of Marshfield, but the land I own that is directly affected is downline. It's in Columbia County, and a spill would ruin our land. Why I'm here today is to look at the overall picture of Enbridge and what a good neighbor they've been. I have friends here that have spoke with their personal stories. They do a better job of that than I, but I'm going to look at how they've treated people across the state of Wisconsin. In December 2015, they gave the Marshfield Rescue and Fire Department a used pickup truck, 2008, with $500 worth of non-perishable food for our food pantries. Nice gift. They've done this across the state. Recently, they've had 2 gas giveaways at Quick Trip, where they advertise it will give you an opportunity to experience Enbridge by talking with our employees. Why would they do this? Out of the goodness of their heart? Really? Do the gifts come with strings? I believe so. I believe it's part of a bigger marketing plan to try to influence you and the public court of opinion. Please look at the timing of these gifts. It started after the neighbors started to join together to say, no, we don't want to give more land. We're doing enough already. Is that timing just a coincidence? No, I don't believe so. Enbridge will tell you they pay taxes and hire people. Yes, but when I spoke to Representative Culp about the taxes they're paying, it doesn't come back to Wood County. It goes into the general fund. So our neighbors are taking all the risk, but they're not seeing the benefit from the taxes. In Minnesota, right now, Enbridge is suing the counties. They want to refund the taxes they paid from 2012 to 2016. Enbridge claims that the Department of Revenue calculated it incorrectly. Local districts, government, school districts would be hurt too because they use that money. Where would these counties come up with this money now to pay them back if they were to win? 2 counties have actually said, Clearwater and Red Lake, they could end up refunding more money to Enbridge than they bring in a whole year for their taxes. Now, how are they going to continue services if they need to do that? Is Enbridge really such a great partner? Does that sound like a partner you want to do business with? Not me. At Enbridge's came to our town meeting in Lincoln Hall in March 3rd of 2016, and when residents asked them, how many jobs will this really create in Wisconsin? Mr. Mark Willoughby, their engineer, said, well, you know, there'll be a few, and when pressed, he said 20 jobs. That's what we're talking about. But yet Enbridge can afford to have all of these people here today. I ask you to please vote for this resolution and support your neighbors that voted for you.
Good morning. My name is John Andrizzi. I live in the town of Rome, which is located in Adams County.
I'm speaking for my sister Mary, who lives at 455 2 Mile Avenue here in Wisconsin Rapids. My take on this thing is a little bit different than many of the other people that have spoken before me. I'm talking to you about the philosophy under which we're actually concerned here. And that's eminent domain. I'm not talking about Enbridge, I'm not talking about anybody else. I'm talking about a subject that you are going to be voting on today to send as an advisory to the legislature in the state of Wisconsin. This is a philosophical sort of a thing, in addition to all of the monetary and heartstring sort of situations that people have already talked about. The idea of eminent domain is something that was established long ago in our country and has been applied reasonably well until recent times. Eminent domain, very most recently, has been used for private gain for private companies, as opposed to its original intent, which was a matter of the taking of land in a necessary situation for the improvement of utilities, not profitability. Utilities, highways, power lines, things of that nature. We've gone way astray with this. Now we're supporting a for-profit company. In this case, I'm talking about Enbridge, a for-profit company that is actually headquartered in a foreign country. Giving money to a foreign country, giving them the basic ability to rubber stamp taking a property is something that is egregiously wrong with our society today. We should not be doing this. I urge you to vote to send this resolution to the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me be here. I'm Carolyn McGuire from Marshville. I own a home 65 feet from the pipeline on a 10.5 acre parcel of land. 3 lines have been added since my purchase in 1984. During those years, I paid property taxes, paid my mortgage, and spent thousands of dollars in improvements. This is my nest egg, as your homes are for you. As a teacher for 43 years in central Wisconsin, I've tried to mold young minds to be good citizens of their communities, our state, and our world. My goal has always been to be a good role model to students. That means being honest, being fair with other people, and treating others the way you want to be treated. Who here would want a foreign company to bypass his and her amendment right to own private property and have it condemned and taken just to avoid paying a fair price? That is what the right of eminent domain, that's exactly what it does. Please vote with Wood County property owners like me to send this bill to the state of Wisconsin for approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, and I thank you for your time too. I'm speaking in opposition to this resolution.
Could I get you to state your name real quickly?
My name is Aaron Rapp.
Thank you.
My career started on the pipeline as an operating engineer. 21 years old. I had that opportunity to work for Enbridge, and that molded the way I run my life today and my family. They installed safety issues, and I believe, there's in our local 139 we have 6,300 active members. Granted that they're not all working for pipelines, but they employ a lot of our people throughout the trades, and we need. I mean, it is a good paying job when we have that work, and down the road, it's hard to get the labor force today. We're having a rough time filling seats. So without these jobs, we're going to suffer even more. So I ask you to vote down this resolution. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Jason Berry. I reside in Marshfield. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to us today. Looks like there's only a few more people, so I'll make mine pretty quick. Everybody's pretty much said anything that I was going to say. You know, we're against the pipeline expansion. We're against the use of eminent domain for private gain. The one thing that they really haven't talked about is safety. They're going to say that they're 99.9% safe. Well, I'm here to say that back in 2000, shortly after I purchased my home, we had an oil spill on our property. That takes my property value down. Now we want to add more lines, or another line. That too is going to decrease my property value. I ask anybody here, knowing that I had a spill on my property, would you want to buy it? I'm guessing not. Please help us, vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joan Arnold from the town of Rudolph. This is a property rights issue and nothing about anything else really. It's all peripheral stuff. It's a property rights issue. I don't own property in the pipeline area, but when I was a kid, our farm could have been taken for a nuclear power plant to make a big pond area for cooling water. So I have an understanding of how it would feel for those property owners in that pathway and who is going to be affected by this, and what the property is worth, and what it should be paid for all the hard work that they put into it, and that hopefully they would continue to do. So I speak in solidarity with everything that was said about voting yes for this thing. Again, it's a property rights issue. And we have government there to protect the people, not corporations per se, but the people that elected you. You have to have our backs, not just for one issue on property rights, but for all issues on property rights. And I didn't waste my time in the Army protecting your and our ability to do that. So think about what your property is worth and what you want to get out of it if somebody comes along and wants it for some other reason than what you want it for. Because again, you own it, you pay taxes on it, and you're affected by whatever happens with somebody else doing work on it. Thank you. And please vote yes. Have our back.
Thank you.
Good morning, Rick Potter from Nakusa. I'm going to follow up with what Joan had to say from a veteran's perspective. I too am a veteran. If a foreign entity had come into the United States and confiscated or taken land, if it was a foreign country or a foreign entity, we would consider that an act of war. But somehow, with a few well-placed campaign contributions and a few trinkets to the fire department, we seem to think that's okay, that somehow is in the public interest to add to the profits of a foreign corporation. Well, I would disagree with that. I would disagree with that. I strongly support that you vote yes on this resolution to reinstate property taxes or property rights to the constituents that put you in office. It seems on the local level, really you are the front lines now. It seems that a lot of our state legislators and federal legislators, I don't know how else to say it, but are easily blocked with some campaign contributions. I think it now comes down to a local control, and the supervisors here are really on the front lines. The people that you represent are the people that live next door to you, and I hope that you would follow through and vote yes on this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson Plumel and respected Wood County Supervisors. Thank you for the opportunity to address your county board this morning on a matter of importance to the hundreds of men and women who proudly work for Enbridge Energy, many of whom are here today. As you can see, we have these green stickers that say, I'm sorry, Scott Scooter with Enbridge Energy. We're all wearing green stickers that say we support safe energy transportation. We respectfully come before you in opposition to Resolution 5.1. Frankly, the resolution contains inaccuracies, which we welcome this opportunity to address and possibly correct.
Let's do it.
One of the premises of this resolution is that Enbridge has a new pipeline project in Wisconsin. That is simply not the case. There are several important steps which would have to occur before such a project could even begin. First, market conditions would have to be favorable for our company to consider this move. They are not, and they have changed dramatically over the course of the past few years. Enbridge would have to have a customer base for such a project. We do not. As a publicly traded company, we would have to publicly notify elected officials, such as yourselves, the media, and our landowners of such a project. We have not done so.
Yes, you have.
We would have to apply for and obtain the requisite environmental permits for such a project. We have not done so. Thus, we do not have a project, and if we did, this body would be amongst the first to learn about it. I'd also like to address the false theory that a new line is somehow required due to a bottleneck at our terminal in conjunction with Line 3. That, too, is not accurate. Crude oil comes into our Superior terminal from multiple pipelines and can be transported out of the terminal by either Line 61 or 3 other pipelines. Just because a batch of oil comes in one particular pipeline does not necessarily mean it will go further on any other particular pipeline. Also, we are not pursuing the Sandpiper project as a result of market conditions changing. With regard to eminent domain, it's been suggested that we have new powers of eminent domain and condemnation authority and new regulatory authority. As you can see by the memorandum from the nonpartisan Wisconsin Legislative Council, neither of those suggestions are true. Finally, I'd like to leave you today with a bit of information about our operations in Wisconsin and our commitment to the communities that you represent. We transport the energy that fuels our lives. We have over 400 employees, not including contractors, in 18 offices operating in Wisconsin since 1949. We pay over $26 million to the state in property taxes. We have invested nearly $1.5 billion in statewide infrastructure development. Yes, we've donated $59,000 in safe community grants to Wisconsin in 2015. We've invested $5 billion in renewable energy and plan to invest another $5 billion more in the next few years. So in conclusion, we value our relationship with our communities. We respectfully ask you to vote no on this resolution. Thank you so much for your time.
That's time. Is there any other public comment?
Can we speak more than twice? Once?
No. The rule is once. And I do want to thank everybody for their respectful comments, for the civil discourse. I heard only about 1 or 2 outbursts during the entire time, and I do appreciate that. I will ask the board this question. I have a lot of people in this room. It's way out of order in the packet. It's page 134. Does the board want to bring this resolution to the front of the packet?
Yes, please.
Yes. Do I have anybody who disagrees? Okay, at this point in time, it's page 134 in your packet.
Wait until we get there.
Bill, you might not be page 134 on the iPad, I'm not positive.
It is 134.
And I'd ask the clerk to please read the resolutions.
This will be Resolution 17-8-1 to support reform of Wisconsin's eminent domain laws to ensure the protection of Wood County residents' property rights and to prohibit the use of eminent domain for forcible land takings by for-profit oil pipeline companies. Fiscal note, none.
Okay, you've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion? Is there a motion? I have a motion by Zerflu, a second by LaFontaine. Discussion. I assume this will be considerable. Discussion. Supervisor Clendenning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has been going on for quite some time. It was with the Seat Committee, but I'm glad it came to the Judicial Legislative Committee. Because what you're voting on today is exactly what was said, property rights. Let's take, for instance, that Wood County had an ordinance about trains holding up vehicles and traffic jams and things like that. And we had the Sheriff's Department reported 34, I believe, violations of that ordinance. It was taken to court, and all of those were thrown out because this was the Canadian National, a foreign company, and we didn't have any rights to do that because it was up to the federal government. This is the same thing. All that Mr. Suter said was the fact that this is about property rights. It's not about how great Enbridge is. Is this meaning that, I think we were threatened here today to say, you people in Wood County, if you vote for this resolution, we're not going to give any more money to the fire department, EMS, and things like that. Is that the tactic that is used in free stuff? I'm voting for this, and I'm proud to.
Further discussion? In regard and respect to civility, I'd ask that everybody refrain from applause as speakers tend to speak. Up to this point, we've done a really good job of that. There will be varying opinions in the room, and I don't want to get into the applause or booing opinions. So if we can keep it at that, I'd greatly appreciate it. Further discussion on the resolution. Further discussion on the resolution. I'm going to speak to the resolution, therefore I'll hand this gavel over to Mr. Wagner as Vice Chair of the Board. I agree. This is a private property rights issue. But it's a private property rights issue that's balanced by the public interest. And in regard to public interest, in the interest of energy independence in this country, in the interest of national security, in the interest of economic development, I can't tell you today if 80 feet is enough, if 81, 82, 83, 100, 200, or 300 is what we're going to need into the future. I don't have that crystal ball. I would guess that most of you looking back to the late 70s or early 80s certainly didn't probably have a cell phone, and you didn't have a personal computer on your desk. And we do today, and I don't know what those needs will be. I asked the question of the Legislative Fiscal Bureau. They sent out a memo, and the memo says, Act 55 does not allow oil pipeline companies to do anything differently than they did last year or the year before. Did it change the permitting process? The answer is no, it did not. Did it contain any changes specifically applicable to oil pipeline companies? And the answer is no. In this country, we do everything through basically those 3P partnerships, the public-private partnerships. You can invest in oil companies. You can invest in electric companies, transmission companies. We actually have toll roads in this company, or in this country, that are now owned by foreign entities. The thought of the regulatory commissions, whether it be the PSC in this case or others, is that it is in the public interest. And in that balance, and in that need to do so, I absolutely oppose this because I don't know what the needs will be going forward. There is review by the PSC before any project can go forward. There's judicial remedy if you're not happy with that decision. Nothing has changed. This has been introduced under the guise that there's been changes to that rule. There have not. And in that, when speaking with the people around the state, our state legislature, people involved in manufacturing and commerce, the other industries across the state, including the Wisconsin Counties Association, I firmly oppose this. I would like to leave it the way it is. This is only an advisory resolution, by the way. This is not a bill. This is not a law. And I can tell you at this point in time, unless something changed yesterday, there were no state legislators on board in favor of this. I thank you.
Are there any other people who have not been recognized previously? Yes, Mr. Lightman?
Thank you. A couple things. I tried to listen and take notes very carefully as people spoke today. Keith, I'm sorry I didn't get your name, but he said there's another option for Enbridge, and that being a line that's over its serviceable age, over 50 years, line 6A, I believe. I'd like that to be looked at by Enbridge. I think that's a very viable solution. But then I agree with Supervisor Clendenning. This is a property rights issue, first and foremost. Looking at my notes again, our 11th speaker, Amber, talked quite eloquently, but I'd like to remind our supervisors that we voted once already about big box stores trying to reduce their taxes. You know, we took a stand on that. We should probably continue to take that stand. Last thing I want to say, and I haven't heard this morning, as an ex-civics teacher, I brought my civics book with the Constitution in it. More than one constitutional amendment, and you know, we have to realize that amendments to the Constitution were put there because our founding fathers very much wanted the people to have their rights and their rights listed. And so if this is a property right, listen to Amendment 4. We've heard about Amendment 5, but Amendment 4, the right of the people, it says, to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Clendenning, I'll ask you if anybody else is wanting to speak. Mr. Reserve, please.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I'm going to be looking down at my notes because you know my Italian blood sometimes gets riled up and I forget what I want to say. Eminent domain is a great thing. However, I guess when you get into the property rights, when you take land by eminent domain, I just can't get it through my head that the folks have to still pay taxes on property that they can no longer use. There were some good old boys back in about the mid-1700s that said no taxation without representation, and I think in a sense, I think that's where we are. I believe in the safe movement of energy. I would much rather have it in a pipeline from a company like Enbridge. When I spent my 37 years in police work, they do some darn good work for the local governments. And that's just not to buy votes. However, I say that because I sure don't want it on rickety rails or horrendous highways that we seem to have around this area. I know Enbridge is a tax-paying member of our community, and that's good. But I guess since this is a property rights issue, why they couldn't pay the property taxes on the property they've taken under eminent domain? I mean, if a person can't use their property, why should they have to pay taxes on it? I can understand if they don't have, put a permanent structure on a pipeline area. That's common sense why you wouldn't want to do that. But if you want to grow flowers and you want to have a garden, I don't see the harm. And since this is a property rights issue, I'm going to be voting yes in support of this resolution. And I go back to the 1700s. I just don't think it's right to take property from somebody and then expect them to pay the property taxes on it. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Rosar?
Thank you, sir. I was up till about 2:30 this morning looking up pipelines and doing research, and I learned more about pipeline transport and what petroleum is used for and all the 6,000 things, and it does seem to be a way of our life right now. I think we brought up some really important points in our discussion today, and I think there are some questions that need to be answered in relation to this resolution. So I would like to make a motion to send this resolution back to committee, maybe answer some of the questions that are there. I also have questions about this line 6A, and is it functioning, and things like that. And I think some of those questions need to be answered, and I would like to make a motion to send it back to committee for further discussion and perhaps bring it back in a...
Motion is to refer, and you are making that motion?
I am, sir.
Is there a second? Is there a second? I'll ask one more time. If there's a second. I'm sorry that the motion dies for lack of a second.
Don't apologize.
Well, okay, thank you. All right, is there any, Mr. Kimmel, please.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to clarify one other thing. In a statement I made, and I said this is a private property rights issue. I have electric transmission lines that cross my property to the tune of over half a mile. I've had a pipeline that has crossed some of my property in the past. It does not preclude your use of the property. I would not argue with you that it couldn't diminish the value of your property from a property tax standpoint, but that's a discussion you can have with the local property tax authority and have that value reduced and those payments made accordingly. That is a true statement. The other part of that is nobody takes without compensation, and sometimes better discussion could be had. The ability to probably come up with a better price is available, but at the end of the day, the people who either have that across their property, bought property that has a pipeline or a transmission line across it, were paid at some point, and typically the property taxes are reduced accordingly. At least that has been so in the case of the properties that I have owned.
Okay, Mr. Clendenning, did you wish to make a, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Did Supervisor Hinkle?
Thank you. I understand that this is a serious and deep discussion that we need to have. Eminent domain and property rights have to be carefully balanced. But the resolution that has been brought forth today is an attack on a specific company. It mentions it by name several times. And it's a local employer. It employs 16 people in Wood County. This is an inappropriate format of a resolution just to start out with. This is the way it was brought to the seed committee, and we asked for it to be rewritten without those references. Peter Kastenholz wrote another version, which we discussed carefully after we had had one meeting with the 80 is Enough people presenting, one meeting with the Enbridge people presenting, so that we had both sides without having a confrontational circus. Then we made a decision, and the decision, the vote for the seed committee was to table this, to table it and consider it later. I am strongly opposed to this particular resolution, and I really don't want any of us to be supporting something that wasn't carefully and wisely written by our own corp counsel. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Clendenning, go ahead.
Well, I'm not going to speak very good because I'm very upset about, this is the same way with water. All of a sudden we get people on this county board that say, oh, water, everybody's for clean water. But don't mess with the legislators about it, because they're working very hard. The counties association is working very hard. And the fact that these are people that vote for you, and they've come to you with a problem about Enbridge, just like people come to you with a problem about the railroads blocking the intersections. And then we had a resolution about that poor Canadian National. These are people that vote for you, and they brought this resolution before this committee without anything, any amendments or anything to it from the committee or from this county board. And I can't understand why you people would not just send this down to the legislators and let them work on it. But no, they're too busy. I'm still voting yes.
Is there any other discussion? If not, before we call for the vote on I just want to inform you, I did not expect to have the gavel today, and that basically precludes me from offering an amendment to this that I wanted to do. And if I understand that, I'm going to look for a nod from one way or the other from our corporate counsel, who also serves as parliamentarian. But as I understand it, once he hands me the gavel, I can't give it back to him until after this issue is resolved. Is that correct?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Anybody else? I've had to rule on that once before, and that's it. He can't basically speak and then take the gavel back. So I have to preside over the vote itself is what has to happen. So I will not be offering the amendment that I promised in committee that I would be making. And I expressed my opinion in committee that I would prefer a substitute amendment, but I'm not going to be able to do that. So we're at the point now, if there's no further discussion, are you ready to vote? Okay. Excuse me?
Supervisor Kramer.
Oh, Mr. Kramer, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody that came in from both sides. I tried to take a very approach about this as far as educating myself on this issue. I agree with certain points on both sides, and for that, I am going to somewhat agree with what Supervisor Rosar said about sending this back to committee. However, I think it should go back to the seat committee and have a joint meeting with the Judicial and Legislature Committee, have a joint meeting on this issue, and try to get a little more information and background. There's lots of sides to this story. There's a lot of things. I personally do not like the wording of this resolution. I think it could be cleaned up. I agree with Supervisor Hildy that we could do this a little bit better. It's very pointed, and to me it seems a bit more of a rant than a resolution. So I think that my vote would be not necessarily against property rights, but I do not like the language of this resolution. So I would make a motion that we send it back to Judicial and Legislative and SEED, with SEED, where it originated with SEED, SEED having the authority in that meeting, if that is appropriate, to run that meeting and have a healthy debate at that level.
Is that what? That is a motion?
That is a motion.
And is there a second? Supervisor Rosar, is that a second?
That is.
So the question before the body is whether or not to refer to a joint meeting of the Legislative and Judicial Committee. Discussion on that issue, please. Mr. Clinton.
I'm opposed to this. Here we go, kicking the can down the road. That's all it is kicking the can down the road. I don't think there would be any difference in the turnout in this by the two of us committees getting together. I'm in favor of voting no against it.
Anybody else on the motion to recommit? Anybody not? We need to use the board on this? Yes. Okay. Can we set up?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I will ask you now, please vote on the, excuse me, Mr. Zerflu.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Would you please explain the tabling thing now, and then a vote note, I presume, on tabling?
A no vote would be not to send it back to committee and go back to the original motion to approve or disapprove the resolution. Okay, that's okay. Are you ready to vote? Okay, please vote. The motion fails, 7 yes and 11 no. We are now back to the original motion. Is there any other discussion on the original motion? If not, hold on. Whoops. Hold on. We have the rookie. Are we ready? No.
Yes, Vice Chairman Wagner, we are ready.
Vice Chair.
The motion carries 10 yes and 8 nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your input today, too. And I hope by moving that to the front of the pack, we'll let some of you get back to the rest of the duties that you have today. This will then be forwarded down to the state legislature. We'll see what they do with it. Page 6 in your packet, referrals for audit.
Yeah, can you wait till we catch up? Hold up, we can sit back.
No, we're here. All right, look, we're going to have to move today. Take a 5 5-minute, we'll recess for 5 minutes while they're clearing out of the room.
That's right.
Really 5 minutes. Okay, let's reconvene. We have the referrals for August, page 6. There were 4 of them that went out. I can tell you, Mr. Clendenning's committee will get another one coming from the WCA after the board meeting the other day that deals with the opioid epidemic and compensation from some of those drug manufacturers, as was the tobacco settlement. And that will be coming forth very quickly. They'd like to do those before the conference, if at all possible. Page 7 of your packet, executive committee meeting, August 1st. Page 8, 9, and 10. The subcommittee meeting for the interviews of the finance director on 11. The executive committee subcommittee on the river block building relocation of the courthouse apartments, pages 12, 13, and 14. Subcommittee on building. Their meeting from Monday, August 7th, on pages 15 and 16. Wellness board meeting minutes on 17. Maintenance, Ruben's report on 18. Safety and risk management, 19. Comments from the county clerk and some interesting research there by Trent on 20 and 21. Pages 22, 3, and 4, information technology. Human Resources monthly letter of comments on 25, 6, 7, and 8. Treasurer's report on 29. And what would have been the first resolution in the packet, I guess it's the first one in the packet, but the second one we're acting on today from Health and Human Services as well as the Executive Committee.
This will be Resolution 17-8-2 to create one full-time environmental health sanitarian or environmental health assistant position. Fiscal note, anticipated wages and benefits total $78,112.
I have a motion by Hamilton, second by Lightnum. Any discussion on the resolution? Any discussion? Supervisor Mahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a question on this concerning the last whereas, and if I may read it, the 2017 budgeted tax levy request of $1,390,822 will not increase as a result of the FTE change. I assume that is the levy requested by the Health Department. My question is, would that levy, it says it will not increase in 2017, 2 questions. Would that levy have decreased without this FTE for 2017? And will it increase in 2018? Thank you.
No. I'm going to ask the director of our health department to come to the microphone. She's shaking her head no, but you can't see that on the iPhone. So you go to the microphone.
There we go. Both of the answers to those questions are no. The levy would not have decreased for 2017 without the position, and it will not increase in 2018 due to the position. This is non-Wood County tax levy funding.
Further discussion? Supervisor Winch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to do the second whereas. Since we're going to, for projected numbers of 227, is that the additional inspections?
In Adams and June.
Yes.
That's the total addition?
Yeah.
And we're hiring a full-time person to do 227?
Those are the additional inspections over the number that Adams and Juneau originally gave us, that they said would need to be inspected. So that's a 50% increase in the numbers they originally gave us. The state health department had been doing their inspections, and there were 227 that had not ever been inspected.
So the number isn't 227, there's something different than that. How many total inspections are we picking up here?
The 227 was a 50% increase, so half of 227 plus 227. 350-ish.
Well, part of the reason I asked that is I know a person that is a state inspector, and they're expected to do 850 inspections
I'm adding it.
444.
That's why 227 were never inspected, because the state inspectors are not capable of inspecting them anymore.
They're just not being done.
Well, the other question is, it used to be that if there was something other than municipal water, there were companies out there that did that inspecting. We didn't do that. Are we now inspecting wells that are outside of municipal sewer, or your water?
We've done that for decades, yeah.
What's that?
The TNC program through the DNR, we've done that for decades.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then why do we have companies out there that are contracting that?
We take the...
So can you go to the microphone, please? Yeah. Why don't you just stay there?
I'm about done.
We have never contracted with companies to do that testing. We collect the water supplies through a contract with the DNR, and then we take that to labs. So like Ag Source, for example, we take that and we pay them to run the test. But we have always done the collecting and had the contract with the DNR for the TNC program.
Well, that must have changed, because I know businesses that I did business with, that we discussed that, and they were hiring somebody that was located in the RCH building down there. But that's a few years back. I'm just curious as to why we're doing it now. Thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions? Any further discussion? Further discussion? Vote. That resolution passed 17-1. Page 31 in your packet, following resolution from the executive committee dealing with the offer of sale of property.
This will be Resolution 17-8-3 to accept offer of sale of property. The offered amount of $1,000 minus real estate taxes, publication fees, and abstracting fees leaves the county with a gain of $110.81.
Motion by Hinkle, second by Bride. Discussion? Supervisor Clendenin.
I just want to ask, with this publication fees, isn't there a change going on that you can put that on your website, or is that not so?
My understanding is that the legislature, with a lot of pressure from publishing organizations, did not pass that.
Oh, okay.
So that was my understanding.
They didn't. They got killed.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Ready, please vote. Resolution passed 18-0. Following resolution in your packet, page 32, information, and it goes through page 36 actually, but begins on page 32. I'd ask the clerk to please read that resolution.
This will be Resolution 17-8-4. Tax deed eligible property, authorize the tax deeding of property in compliance with Section 75.14 Wisconsin statutes. Fiscal note with taxes, special charges, delinquent utilities, special assessments, publication fees, and tax deeding expense totals $230,692.87.
Motion by Clendenin, second by Fire. Discussion on the resolution. Any discussion on the resolution? Yes, please vote. Again, that resolution passed 18-0. Moving on to the packet, page 37, Health and Human Services Committee, July 19th. That's on 37 and 38. Health and Human Services of July 27th on 39 and 40. Minutes of the North Central Community Action Program, their Board of Directors meeting, beginning on 41, to 42 and 43. Minutes of the Veteran Service Commission on 44 and 45. Director Brewing's report, or beginning with his report from the Human Services Department on page 46, running through page 50, 46 through 50. Cindy Robinson's report from Edgewater Haven on 51. Veteran Service Officers Report, 52 and 53. The Health Department report on 54, 5, and 6. And then that brings me to page 57 in your packet, and another resolution that comes from the Health and Human Services, as well as the Judicial and Legislative Committees.
This will be Resolution 17-8-5, to provide an additional treatment option for youth that otherwise would be limited to placement at Lincoln Hills or Copper Lake Juvenile Correction Centers. Fiscal note, anticipated cost savings as the rate at Northwest Regional Juvenile Detention Center is far less than the rate charged by Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake.
Again, I have a motion by Hamilton, a second by Clendening. Discussion on the resolution? Any discussion on the resolution? All right, please vote. Once again, that resolution passed 18-0 unanimously. Minutes of the Wood County Public Safety Committee from July 17th, beginning on page 58 and running through page 61, 58 through 61. Minutes of the Wood County Traffic Safety Commission on 62 and 63. Central Records meeting 64 and 65. Humane Officers Report 66 and 67. Coroner's Report on 68. Some pretty interesting information on an overtime breakdown that goes all the way back to 2004, beginning at 69 and running through 76. I know somebody asked for that information at one point when I made that comment. It's laid out for you there. Supervisor Roser.
I just have a question. As I was reading through this packet, there were some pages that it took me a couple of minutes to figure out what they were because they're not labeled, like from the Sheriff's Department. And I'm just asking if maybe there could be better labeling as to what some of these pages are, so I don't have to think so hard about what they relate to. It just, there's a lot to read, and you go, oh my gosh, what does that page mean? There's no heading, it's not in context, so just a suggestion.
So those committee chairs, when you go back to your next committee, we ask that those people taking those notes and the information provided have that on there, because unless you, well, I guess you're right, it really doesn't tell what it is unless you know what's question. A note from the Sheriff's Department on 77 in regard to Crime Stoppers. Lieutenant Charlie Louis Stater's report on the K-9 program on 78 and 79. The Wood County Jail reports 80 through 85. The Seed Committee report from Tuesday, or committee meeting from Tuesday, July 18th on 86. The Seed Committee minutes from August 2nd, beginning on page 87, 88, 89, and 90, and page 90. Escrow Fund Review Board minutes from August 7th, August 2nd on 91. North Central IDPAC minutes, 92 to 95. A memo from Supervisor Henkel in regards to the WCA Agriculture, Environment, and Land Use Steering Committee on July 21st. That's on 96. On page 97, we begin the staff reports from the Land and Water Conservation Department in 1897 and run through 101. Had a report that I was pretty glad to see. It was the airport activity report from Marshfield, and I found that to be very interesting. It was kind of nice to have that included in the packet, and that was 102 to 107. I guess it brings to light, a lot of times you don't think there's a lot of traffic, but there obviously is a lot of traffic. UW Extension, beginning with Peter Manley's report on 108 and running through 112. The Planning and Zoning Director's report, beginning on page 113, running through his staff reports, 113 through 116, 113 to 116. Minutes of the Judicial and Legislative Committee of August 4th on 117, 18, 19, and an attendance sheet on 20. Corp Counsel Kassenholz monthly letter to the board for August, beginning on 121. child support report on 122. Notice of injury and claim, and there's a number of those typically in regard to roads this time of year, and these were also 123 through 131, pages 123 through 131. Corp Counsel Kassenholtz memo or memorandum on the open meetings law and some of the court decisions that just came out. We were just briefed at the WCA Executive Committee the other day how onerous this Supreme Court decision was and how hard the legislature is working on to find some remedy to this. It has basically reached the point where if I said to one of our department heads, why don't you and your deputy get together and bring me back a solution, that might have to be noticed. So they're working on this very hard to see how we remain open and transparent, but if 2 or 3 staff people get together in a meeting to discuss a solution, it really should not be subject to open records. So that was 132 and 133. Minutes of the Highway Infrastructure and Recreation Committee beginning on page 136 and running through 141. Those are the minutes from August 3rd. Their minutes from August 7th, beginning on 142 and running through 147. Are there any questions on those? Okay, let's take this one first. The first resolution coming from the Highway Infrastructure Recreation Committee dealing with the Parks and Forestry Directors. Budgets.
This will be item 17-8-6, or resolution number 17-8-6, excuse me, to give the Parks and Forestry Director and/or Forest Administrator and the Highway Infrastructure and Recreation Committee authorization to apply for reimbursement for fish and game and wildlife habitat projects through the County Conservation Fund. Fiscal note, this is a 50-50 matching grant fund for projects totaling approximately $5,000 per year. Wood County would be reimbursed all costs, 50% from the grant award and 50% from donation from the Consolidated Muskie Club.
A motion by Zerflu and a second by LaFontaine. Any discussion on this resolution? Any discussion? All right, please vote.
No.
Oh, no, don't vote.
Okay, now vote.
He talks more to me now than he did when he was sitting on that. We're good now? That resolution passed unanimously. The next resolution is in direct relation, or the special order of business is in direct relation to the resolution. So I think what I'm going to do is allow the special order of business first, and then we will bring this to the floor. So, Highway Department. Presentation regarding additional funding for the highway projects.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank the Wood County Board to give us the opportunity to talk about this, and also the HERC Committee. I know they're committed to our 5-year plan through the discussions we had in the department. We're after preserving our roads with our 5-year plan. It's really important for us to do that. We have amended it a little bit for a little bit less, but for us it's important. We've made a lot of progress on our roads as we move forward. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to have John go through some of the slides that we have here, and then at the end we'll ask for questions. Can we sit?
Good morning.
Can we get that brighter?
That's very difficult to read.
Can we kill the house lights?
Well, that's not good one.
That's not
I was just going to say.
That's a little bit. That's better.
Throwing a blanket over a bunch of birds.
Are you the only one who knows how to turn off those lights?
Thank you, Trent. So
a look back. Where were we then? Where are we now? And where are we going to be? Just a quick snapshot for you folks. For most of you, this will be a review. So back in 2014, we came to you with a presentation similar to what we're doing today, maybe a little more involved. And we showed you this slide right here. And if you can see the 2015 level, that was status quo. That was if we had no additional funding presented to us whatsoever. This county board agreed that we needed a little more money to get the roads up to a standard. And we presented 2 options for you. Option A was leave our levy the same, no change in the levy, and just give us $2.7 million in additional funding. What, up here?
Doug would be a little bit standing right in front of the slide. Thank you.
Go back in the jury box.
Okay, so 2 adjustments. I moved this up and he moved over. Okay, we're good.
Now we can see.
Okay, so yeah, we asked for 2.7 million above what we were currently getting at that time. 2 ways to get it: leave our levy the same and get additional funding of 2.7 million through debt issue, or you could take 1.8 million of our levy, which was reserved for construction, and give us debt issue of 4.5 million. The county board at that time decided to go with option B. The 1.8 million of our levy was used for other departments, other levy concerns, and our entire construction budget was funded through debt service. What have been the results? Where are we now? Well, you can see back 2014 is where we had the conversation. 2015 is where we started using the money that you folks got for us. I think most of you are aware that we rate the roads on an annual basis on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 is a brand new road. 1 is a totally shot road that you probably don't even want to walk your dog on. You can see that the average road rating has increased about 0.3 each year that we've had funding in 15 and in 16. We anticipate then, of course, the end of 2017 to have our roads average a rating of about 7.2. We would like them to average 7.5 to 8. That would be a very good average for all of our roads. So a look to the future. Well, we understand that some folks here don't want debt at all, okay, a 0 level of debt, but unfortunately we're not there anymore because of option B. Okay, our levy was taken away, 1.8 million. You can't really raise the levy 1.8 million. We got frozen. We're frozen, right? So we're going to have some level of debt. There is going to be some level of debt to fund highway construction, or you don't have any highway construction. A month ago, when that original resolution was voted down, I was thinking to myself, we've got $0 for construction. What are we going to? The rest of our levy is strictly for maintenance. So fortunately, it came back around. We got to 2.5 million now. We're here to ask for another $1 million. Whether or not you approve it, if we stick with the 2.5 million, there will be a significant impact on construction projects for next year. And for that, I'm going to hand the mic to Doug.
As you can see, if you look up there, it's what the decreased value would be. And these are anticipated at 3.5 million. So if we stay with the 2.5, there'll be a few more roads that we will not be able to move forward with. It's important to keep up with our 5-year plan. I think it's going to cost us more if we don't move forward to catch up again. We've done a very good job with the monies that we have spent. We've taken a plan that was supposed to be 5 years, and it's going to be, we'll be able to catch up in 4 years. So we are ahead of schedule. That's a good thing. But we sure don't want to drop the ball and fall backwards again and try to catch up again. We've been through our catch-up stage, and John will go through some numbers here in a minute that'll show if we do borrow money where our debt service will level off, meaning we're going to be in debt unless we raise the levy, and obviously we haven't done that. So, and next slide.
Back to GTAs. Yep. General transportation aids again. I know. It gets old to hear it, but the message is true that this is one of the few times we can spend money to make money, right? With general transportation aids, the more money you spend on construction, the more money you get back, assuming the formulas are all going to stay the same for the next few years. The GTA formula uses a 6-year construction cost average to determine the amount of the aids. I'm not going to read this word for word, but basically what it says is that if we continue the spending the way that we have, our GTAs will exceed the amount of interest that we are charged for the several years that those increased spending dollars are in that 6-year formula. Complicated way to say spend more, make more, okay? After that, the GTAs will dip below the total interest charged. Even so, over time, I've calculated that about 87% of the interest charges are covered by the increases in GTA, which leads to a net effective interest rate of 0.18%. And what that comes from, Mike has told us last year, the interest rate was about 1.4% for our debt issue. 87% coverage of that gets us down to a 0.18% interest rate. Just as a side note, by decreasing the 2018 debt issue from the originally planned $4.7 million down to $2.5 million, the Highway Department could lose an estimated $350,000 in GTA over the 6-year period affected by the 2018 spending. And back to Doug to tell you why now is the right time.
As you can see, historically low interest rates, 1.4, that's 2016 level. Also capitalizing the GTA, which is really important over that 6-year average. The more we spend on that, the more it comes down. And I do see our spending leveling off. I would say if we can get through this year, it's probably going to come down to somewhere around 2.8, somewhere in there.
Right.
Low oil prices, meaning we can do more with less. We have done more. You can see where we talked about how our charts have risen. When we first thought about this program, we thought we could maybe get 25, 28 miles of road improved, but over efficiencies, things like that, we've been doing more. That's where the original 5-year program comes in, and it's down to a 4-year program. So we've done a nice job on the money that unfortunately, you guys have less had what we had. Transportation funding, there's still a struggle in Madison. They haven't figured out the budgets, so I'm not sure when that's going to happen. I know a lot of folks talk about that a lot. And it's never been a bad time for economic growth. Every time you see a new road, I really believe you get a lot of growth out of that. There's no doubt. You drive around the county, things look nice. We've moved forward a long way. And our constituents in vehicle costs, meaning broken stabilizer bars, things like that. I know there's a cost that we haven't calculated into our formula here. And the next one, we'll move on to questions. I know we haven't taken a lot of time for this, but I think it's important to move forward. Done?
So I have a question. Because things are so unsteady, unstable in Madison, what is going to happen to your budget if indeed you do get increased transportation aids? Would you apply that directly to your construction, and then maybe you wouldn't need as much money? I mean, if we get more money from Madison, how does that affect what you can do?
With the general transportation aid, that goes back into our county budget, but I would gladly give you that for their interest if we could get the additional, and that would pay for most of the interest on the loan. Any other questions? Bill?
Your battery's dead.
Probably. Anyway, I'd just like to clarify for Doug and John and I have had this discussion. The general transportation aid is a 6-year average. The loan is 10 years. So I asked John to figure this up, and he came up with a number, which is, we were always correct. He said it pays for 87%. We've been saying all along that it will more than pay the interest. It doesn't. It's the point I'm making. We're 13% short. That 13% means that we're $230,000 short on paying the interest. I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah,
Thank you.
there is a point, when we talk about that, there is a point within the first 5 years where it more than pays the interest. But it does level out at 87% of every dollar on the debt service you pay, which I think is a very good number. Your loan, I don't even know what the number would be on the percent you're paying on that loan, but it's down.
Okay. Yes, can you explain to me how the GTA actually reduces the levy? Does it have to pay for highway department? Does it? And has it in the past 6 years?
It has not.
I did not think so. And the other problem with it is that, you keep saying it pays our interest. It doesn't. It goes back into your general transportation fund. It doesn't go directly against the debt service itself. So there's no relief to the taxpayers, either from your budget or from the levy that you present to us or on the debt levy itself. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
How may I respond though?
Sure.
Just
This is informational. I hope so.
The GTA money goes directly back into our maintenance fund. So that is money that we're not asking, as that increases, that could potentially be less that we would ask for in our levy. If we didn't ask for a reduction in levy, then we would be able to provide more service for that additional funding.
Bill?
No, I know that it's a 4-year plan, and I appreciate it. First time I voted against it, but I've been for this, 5-year plan rather. Now it's down to 4. And I give John a lot of credit for coming on board about 5-6 years ago, and standing up there and spewing out these numbers. I think that's great. I think we're hearing from the highway department the way we should.
Thanks. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Okay, procedurally again here, this becomes one of the interesting ones. I assume there may be a number of people want to speak on this one. I may speak to this one. I think the vice chair will want to speak to this one too. Anybody out there want to gavel or
Give it to Trent.
or you want me to proceed till you find that there's a...
Give it to the chaplain.
Mr. Chairman, I've said what I need to say. So
give it. Strike that, give it to the chaplain.
Nobody needs to.
Thank you.
Strike the chaplain.
Okay. Okay, well, Mr. Limmel, you're up next, sir.
No, we need to bring the resolution to the floor. You have no motion, no seconds, no.
Okay.
I can't ask for those.
Okay, we need,
You need it read.
well, we need to let Trent get that back down. So.
You're ready, Mr. Vice Chairman?
Yeah, you are. Okay, so would you please read the resolution, sir?
This will be resolution number 17-8-7, initial resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation promissory notes, fiscal note not to exceed $1 million.
We have a motion by Hamilton, second by Zerflug, I think. The discussion. Done.
Bill, go ahead, let Lance go.
Lance, I'm sorry.
I'll lead it off. I have been very consistent in voting for the dollars that we need to improve our highway system in the county. I have a problem with the timing of this resolution coming forward right now and the additional funds being requested. When we looked at the total debt service that this county could handle with a reasonable tax levy, we ran those resolutions, they failed. We did end up eventually funding the $2.5 million for the highway department. But until such time as I see the entire CIP budget from all of the departments and where we most need that money, there's just no way in the world I can support adding an additional $1 million at this point. And that doesn't mean that in a month or a month and a half that things might change enough that maybe 1.5 or 2 million works to get us back on track in the right place and on schedule. But at this point in time, I just cannot support the additional $1 million because we don't have a structured repayment plan in place. We haven't looked at this. I don't know what to do to the levy. So I guess what I would normally do is just be quiet at this point, but I guess that's my concern. It may or may not fly, but at this point,
I would ask to send this back to committee for another month or so until we see where those numbers play out. And then if we can't, move it forward. That's a suggestion.
Is that a motion?
And that is a motion.
If there's a motion, is there a second? Second by Ms. Rosar. Discussion on, okay, the discussion now is on sending it back to committee. Then Donna, you're up next, and anybody else? Okay, go ahead, Donna.
Well, I'm glad I let Lance go first because he iterated my thoughts. I am concerned about capital improvement projects, and because we in the Health and Human Services Committee do have some significant things that we're going to discuss at our budget meeting, I hate to see us go to bonding twice. And I am very supportive of roads. I think that the Highway Department's done a marvelous job. I enjoy driving on our roads without shaking my fenders off as I hit potholes. But I'd hate to see us not look at the big picture. I do believe that the reason that people, and you don't have to challenge me on this, I can just believe this if I want to. I believe that we didn't pass the CIP money because people objected to, well, we're not just going to give the, $1 million without knowing how it's going to be spent. And so I think if we list that and we have specific projects and we can justify those projects, I think there will be some support for CIP money in a borrowing resolution. And so I'd like to wait and see how that all shakes out too, and then put that under, I talked to Mike and Marla this morning, and it looks like it cost us about $30,000 to go before the bond council to pay all the people that we need to pay. And I'd hate to see us, and I know we can go to the state trust fund for, not that much money, but if we can roll everything up into one borrowing resolution, I would like to see that. And I don't think we can do that right now because we don't know where we're going to stand with our CIP. And so I will also be voting against this. Not because I don't support highway funding, but I think we haven't looked at the bigger picture yet, and we haven't looked at what we could roll into this borrowing resolution for CIP project, for CIP. Thank you very much.
Mr. Cornell.
I'm voting against postponing this again, just kicking the can. I see in the details here, people have other plans. They need money for their special committee, and they want to lump it all in together. I think this is so wrong. This went on 4 years ago. This ain't something we thought of today to have a highway fund of $4.7 million. It went to 2.5, and the timing of this, it goes all the way back to the June 6 meeting of postponing all these things for 1 month. Here we are now trying to wrestle for it, and we want to postpone it another month. I'm against postponing this, and we'll vote for the motion.
Okay, before Mr. Plummer, is there anybody else who wishes to speak for the first time? Ms. Engel.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I just want to make sure that everyone voting understands that the Executive Committee does have a CIP meeting scheduled before our next executive meeting. So we will be considering all of these items, and I too think that we ought to wait until after we have gone through the entire thing to act on the highway money, which I support in theory.
Yeah, things change. We're in a fluid environment. A few years ago, I didn't know we were going to spend $5 million on a river block field, but that rolls into debt service. It rolls into the tax levy. Things change. They change at my house every day. You think you want new carpeting in the living room, but the roof starts to leak. Well, you better fix the roof before you put the new carpeting. It kind of reminds me of my kids way back when they said, Dad, if I get this pair of jeans for X number of dollars, I get that second pair for half price. I said, that's great, but you can't pay for the first pair, so I don't know how you figure you're going to get the second. Again, my take on this, if I have to vote today on this, my vote is a no vote. If I have a month to see how this fits into the picture, or time to fit it into the CIP, it probably becomes a yes vote. I just have to see where that total debt service ends up and how that affects the levy at the end of the day. And like I said, it may turn from 1 million into 1.5 or 2 as we ascertain what we need. It's just, for me, this is putting the cart before the horse.
Any further discussion? If not, the vote will be on the motion to recommit it to committee. Trent, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please vote. What just happened here?
Would we state that again?
The vote will be on the motion to recommit to committee. That's what, yes sends it back to highway, no carries it back to the main motion to approve the resolution. So are you ready? Go ahead and vote. And the motion fails. Goes to the floor. Fails 8 yes, 10 no. So we're back to the main motion to approve the resolution. And is there any further discussion on the main motion? If not, please vote. And it fails 11 yes to 7 nay.
It's a 3/4 vote.
It takes a 3/4 vote. Right. So let's see, 4 votes would kill it, right? I think that's what it is. Okay, so the motion fails for lack of 3/4. And with that, Mr. Chairman, you will understand.
Thanks. All right, Central Wisconsin State Fair Board minutes, Director's minutes on 150, 151. South Central Library System Board of Trustees on 152 and 153. That takes me through the packet and takes me over to the Park and Forestry Annual Report. Chad, we finally squeezed you in this month. I was concerned we might end up with enough public comment this morning, moving you out to September.
You want to set the timer to 3 minutes?
I could handle that.
Take a deep breath and don't breathe until you're done.
Right.
Long-term debt. I promise you
Make sure that you check the land.
have something.
Pretty weak.
Did you drive yourself? Okay. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. No, I'm glad I didn't see you.
Okay.
You know we're going to go through this.
All right. Can you hear me? Yeah. Good, sir. All right. Well, first of all, thanks for having me again. I think it's really important that County Board Supervisors, as well as our taxpayers in Wood County, can see on an annual basis where their money's going towards. So I always like doing this. We can, Parks and Forestry, it's kind of easier than other departments because we can have some pretty pictures to go along with the information. So every year I'd like to just kind of put up this slide for your information as far as who in our department are our employees that make all of our things happen within the department, make our properties, our facilities, in my opinion, top-notch within Wood County. So they do a great job on an annual basis. One thing on this slide I wanted to point out is on the very bottom, the emergency government hours. So we typically have a crew in our parks, oftentimes five days per week. Whether our crew comes and picks those individuals up from the jail, or crew leader goes out to our park. So we actually do get, we get a lot of work accomplished that we would not be able to accomplish without those extra hands. So last year we had 1,700 hours, working hours. In addition to our paid employees, we also rely on a lot of clubs and volunteers to make things happen. This is just a list of clubs that we worked with in 2016. great people, great organizations to work with. And like I said, a lot of the stuff that we offer, we wouldn't be able to do without those individuals and clubs. So I'm just going to go through a few of the different events that we had at our within our parks. Annually, this is probably the, I would guess, 6th or 7th year, but we have a summer and winter Kiwanis Youth Outdoors Day. And the winter is typically held at NEPCO, and the summer is at our Lake Wazeecha or Southwood County Park location. Several different events and organizations that come in and have different stations for the kids to basically get used to being outside and doing all the different things that they can do outdoors. In addition, in 2016, we also did through a grant, and that was actually a resolution that you had today, the same grant that we've used in the past. But the Consolidated Muskie Club, several years now, they've actually partnered with us. We're just basically the funnel of money because we're eligible for that grant. But they do stick muskie stocking, not only at NEPCO, but also within our Wisconsin River system in Wood County. That bottom picture there, you can see some DNR staff, some fishery technicians, and they actually do marking. Of a lot of the times when they do the stocking, they'll do some sort of fin marking or different things where they can actually track to see, you know, reproduction rates. Is it happening naturally, or is it more reliant on the stocking of the fish? So it's kind of a neat project. In addition to that, many of you are aware, if not all of you, we host the State Water Ski Show Tournament on an annual basis, and that's at Red Sands Beach at our Southwood County Park. Just concluded that a few weeks back. Another very successful event. The aqua skiers, who are the host of that event on an annual basis, you know, they've got things down to a science as far as setup, running the show, and all that good stuff. So they really are a great organization as far as the state ski tournament, bringing in, you know, I believe that the local tourism department, they always estimate about a $1.2 to $1.5 million economic impact from that event alone. So it is a huge event within Southwood County. In addition to that, in 2016, if you recall, the night before the actual tournament started, which was actually, they had individual events going on at that time, but we did have a major windstorm that went through that area, and this is just a few pictures of that. Our staff did an excellent job, along with emergency management, the local township. You know, we had a lot of volunteers that helped get this thing back in order for the next day, if not that night as well. So sometimes we have that within our Parks Department, unfortunately, but it is something that we have to respond to, and I think our staff did a great job doing that. In addition, in 2016, as you're all aware, also, we were the host of the World Water Ski Show. Again, very proud that we were able to be the host site for that. We just, you know, supplied the site. You know, all the footwork and everything else really came from the aqua skiers and those individuals that were responsible for putting that bid packet together, as well as obviously the whole community when the event started taking place. Again, this is another, I believe they estimated at about $1.5 million economic impact to Southwood County. So having both of those within 1 year was excellent. As you can see, China, Australia, Canada, USA, and Belgium all had teams participating in that event. Another kind of an annual event, it's been going on for quite a few years, is the Autism Awareness. It's called the Jigsaw Run. That too utilizes the walk trail for running/walking around Lake Wazeecha. Typically the first weekend in May, so right away when we open up for the season. Now going into a few of the projects that we completed in the last year. So these are actually two separate buildings. They're on the same location, but the Dexter Park projects. So the one in the upper left-hand corner is the equipment storage shed. The lower right-hand corner is the forestry/equipment maintenance building. As you're aware, these are basically buildings that are replacing existing older structures. We had an old maintenance building at Dexter County Park, And that building, along with the lot, I believe it's approximately 4 acres, is going to be sold, and this is already replacing that building. Our staff has moved in. The other storage equipment, storage building, that is basically taking the place of the lean-to that was on that site. It was just an open lean-to, as well as the forestry shop that currently still is in Wisconsin Rapids over by the highway shop. That building was actually transferred ownership to the highway department, and there's also a stall that Land and Water Conservation utilizes as well. So that was a building that highway was interested in mainly because of the storage space. It allowed them not to have to construct a new building for that purpose. So so that was the Dexter Park storage and maintenance buildings. In addition to that, early in 2016, January, we completed the overlay of the riprap along the dike structure at Southwood County Park, along the dam. That was actually an order that was given through prior DNR inspections of that dam, that there are a few areas that, with the wave action and such, there's erosion taking place. So this was done through a grant. We were actually able to get, I believe it was about 40% of this project reimbursed through the municipal dam grant through the DNR. In addition to that, we also had orders to beef up, and that lower right-hand corner is downstream of the dam structure. A lot of the boulders had kind of washed away from the apron of the dam structure. So we had a contractor come in and actually put in some larger boulders and beef that up just for further protection. A very large project, and Highway Department was involved with this, was our mechanical dredge of Lake Wazeecha, and it was the far, if you're familiar with the lake, the far eastern portion by the County U Highway bridge. It actually involved a lot of different steps. Number one, obviously, is lowering the water. You can see that the process was actually constructing a roadway onto the sandbar itself. And in order to do that, we had to set up a barrier, kind of a turbidity barrier, so all the siltation didn't go downstream. Unfortunately, because of the timing of this and the high water, we did lose a fair amount of the sandbar before we were able to actually get going on this, but it was a learning experience. But you can see the blue barriers. Those are actually inflatable barriers that went around the whole perimeter of the dredge area. You can see kind of in the upper left-hand corner, they're like a bunch of pillows that just kind of overlapped each other. And that was the perimeter of the dredge area. And then highway crews went out and actually loaded and disposed and hauled from the sandbar itself. And the lower picture you can see is our disposal site, and that's the site that we acquired prior to the 1994 dredging, the larger scale dredging. And so that's on County Highway U, a few miles down the road, and so everything was trucked down there. All in all, we were able to dredge a little over 7,000 cubic yards out of that area. Because it is an impoundment, there is a dam structure. That's the area where all the water slows down, and that's where all the siltation occurs. So it's, it'd be great to say that we're 25 years away from another one, but you never know with the amount of rain and siltation that comes down that 4 Mile Creek. You never know what the longevity of this project is, but it is going to have to be done in the future as well. So that's just the price you pay with dam structures like that. While the water was down during that project, we also did some repairs on our boat landing. There's a lot of concrete that was busted up, so we took the time to repair that. This was one of the new pieces of equipment that we acquired this year. We got rid of our old skid steer and we acquired this new one along with the forestry mulching head. Very useful piece of equipment. We've got a lot of hours on that already. Our new forest tech actually does a lot of invasive species control with this. So a lot of our forest is being kind of invaded with honeysuckle and buckthorn and all those invasives that take over the whole understory. it's not a real good thing. You can live with it for a certain amount of time, but this definitely takes care of a lot of that. The treatment really is going in there and taking care of it mechanically, and then treating it with herbicide after that, because it will obviously resprout. But it makes, it could be a lot more handwork if we didn't have this piece of equipment. This forestry head was actually purchased with a $50,000 approximately forestry grant as well, and that's funds through the Wisconsin Counties Forest Association, that program, that grant is funded through. As you're all aware, I made this presentation a few months back, but we've been also working a lot on the Powers Bluff Development Plan, the planning as well as getting the word out and all that good stuff. So that's another project that we've done this year. Now we're just getting into the existing facilities that we do have. Our pavilions, our shelter buildings, we get a lot of use on an annual basis. And this is where we kind of get into those graphs, but in 2016 we had 381 total reservations throughout all 7 of our shelter buildings. The biggest one obviously is our year-round facility at NEPCO with 123 reservations. This is a little harder to see, but this kind of breaks it down by function. As I mentioned in the past, weddings and all the things that go along with weddings are one of our largest. It's actually the largest with 104 different events, followed by the next closest would be graduation parties, and that's with 62 different events. Just looking at a 3-year comparison, 2016, like I said, we had 381. If you look at that top graph there, 381 total reservations, down a little bit from 2015, but still relatively consistent over the last 3 years. In addition to that, we also have the campgrounds, obviously, and this is a breakdown of the last 3 years for that. So in 2016, we had 16,125 camping unit nights. And again, that's very close to the prior year at 16,227. I always like this just to show you kind of who's coming to our campgrounds. And this breaks it out from Wood County residents versus non-Wood County residents. And since I've been doing this, it seems like the non-Wood County continues to creep up. I believe the first year I did it, it was about 51%, real close to half and half. So we are attracting more individuals from outside of Wood County coming into our campgrounds, which is a good thing. In addition, we also have other fees. One of those fees is boat landing parking, and this is a 3-year total of that. In 2016, we had 2,200 total boat landing passes, and that's a combination of daily and annual passes. Cross-country skiing, if you recall, so you have to think back a couple winters ago, that's what these numbers are for, the 2015/16 totals. That was a pretty rough winter as far as winter sports enthusiasts goes. I think we were only open 6 weekends at Powers Bluff that entire winter season, and obviously you can see the cross-country ski trails suffered for that too. So we had 190 total tickets for 2015-16. And as I mentioned, the 3-year Powers Bluff toll pass totals, 2015-16 we saw 3,005 total, and as you can see, the prior year was tough too, but this past year we had good numbers. We were able to open prior to Christmas break, and we lasted almost to March, so it was a pretty good season. County Forest Program, obviously that is the other portion of our department. It's not one that gets as much use as far as number-wise, but it's definitely a big factor in what we can do in all of our parks and forest areas, because it is a pretty large revenue maker for us. As we mentioned before, Wood County is just one of several different counties that have county forest properties within them. Not all of them do. With 37,762 acres that we have in Wood County, we're actually on the lower end of acreage as far as counties go, with the most being Douglas County at almost 279,000 acres. and Vernon being at the low end at just shy of 1,000 acres. So. Timber sales that were set up in 2016, these were not, these were just the sales that were set up as far as bids letting out and things like that. So as you can see, the bid value of those were $691,493.40. So that's for 2016 bids that were let out. You can see the asterisk on the bottom. There are a few that have asterisks, and those are actually salvage sales. We weren't planning on having those set up, but because of that storm, the same one that went through Wazeecha, we had a lot of damage specifically in the Port Edwards, Seneca area, Highway 54. So. Actual county forest timber revenues, and this is just a breakdown of the town's allotment. So 10% of all timber revenues that come in do go back to those towns that have county forest properties in them. It's all prorated depending on how much property is in there. 2016, those townships received $57,880 that went back to them. And then the revenue for the year. And this is a good snapshot from 1999, which is, again, about the time when our current forest administrator came on board. Looking forward up to 2016, where we had $578,000 in revenues. That's a good trend right there, as you can see from the 1999 going forward. Forestry revenues is very hard to predict. This year, we're actually a fair amount behind what our projected budget was, and I'm sure you can guess why, and that would be the weather and how wet the soils are. A lot of our county forest really is a frozen ground only situation, and so we rely on those freeze up conditions, and we haven't been getting those within the last couple seasons here. So. Just a little chart here breaking out revenues. Consistently, forestry is right around 50% of what we bring in for revenue versus camping and all the other park operations. Camping obviously is the biggest one within the parks locations that we have. And this is just a little different way of showing that 2015 versus 16. 15 being in the red and 16 being in the orange. So, big thing at the end is always, how much has this cost us as a county? A 3-year look back, 2014, 15, and 16. That bottom line, you can see that we are a tax levy reliant department. We get tax levy. Just like most other departments, if not all other departments, and those levy dollars offset or go in combination with our fees that we charge within the parks, as well as the revenues that we receive from timber sales. And so on an annual basis, we do have tax levy dollars. In 2016, the budgeted tax levy that we had requested and were approved from this county board was $911,320. The actual for 2016 was $756,324.17. So this is pretty consistent over the past several years. We have been basically, being above and beyond what we had tax levy for, and some of those dollars we have been able to retain, which is great, but a lot of those dollars, majority of them have gone back and have been used for other purposes within the county. So I think we've been doing a great job. We request money, we get approval for it, and then we do our best at being efficient as well as creating as much revenue as we can to support those facilities and areas. Just another interesting little tidbit here. This is always put together on an annual basis by the Department of Tourism within the state, and it's just broke down for Wood County alone. Direct visitor spending from tourism dollars. In 2015, it was $88 million. 2016, $91.4 million. So that's actually a 3.86% increase within Wood County. And again, I always say that Wood County Parks is not the only place people come to enjoy and spend dollars. But with the events and the facilities that we have, we are a pretty major contributor for that. And there's a lot of different, venues that benefit from that. So this is the last slide, but one thing that we're getting more and more into, and we're getting a lot more likes and getting the word out in a lot of our projects or photo contests, but we have a presence on Facebook. And if anyone of you do Facebook and you're not on it, please like us, and you can be updated on a lot of different things. But 2015, we had 543 likes. And 2016, 1,612, and every day we get more and more. So it's a great thing. I think the more we can inform the public on what's going on, the better it is. And that's all I've got. So I'll take any questions or...
Any questions for Chad? Besides, you all need to get on Facebook real quick.
Yeah. So I have a question.
Don?
I have to find that page again with that fancy little piece of equipment you got. But can you use that across trails and then mulch like the limbs and clean up the trails with that machine?
Yeah, so that machine, I mean, it's very impressive. It can basically take down, if it's a standing tree, depending on the species, if it's hardwood or softwood, but like a 6-inch diameter tree, it can bring down and basically have just mulch left over at the end of it. That was something that I did not mention, but we do, trail widening and trail even installation. It would be a good tool for that as well. Up at Powers Bluff, unfortunately, it has its limitations because there's obviously a lot of rocks up there. So we have to keep that head a little higher, but there's a lot of different uses that we'll be using it in the future for.
Yeah, and if I may, Mr. Chairman, and that's really, we spend a lot of money mulching trails on the UW campus, and so I see that as being a real positive. You can clean up the trail and then put mulch down at the same time, and you don't have to pay twice for things.
Any further questions? Good idea. Chair? Our park system really is a jewel. Go out there and use it. Something to be extremely proud of. Any other questions? Anything else that needs to come before the board? Next meeting is scheduled September 19th.
So we don't have that other speaker here?
No. Or at least I've seen nobody in uniform show up.
Certainly go ahead. Announcement.
You can make a quick announcement, sure.
All right. I don't know who's looked at their recent WCA magazine, but on pages 42 and 43, there's a wonderful discussion about keeping minutes, and it was very educational. It was really a good discussion from the parliamentarian for WCA, and I would kind of encourage everybody to take a look at those 2 pages, and it was great. Thank you.
Supervisor Condon, then Ashbeck.
Choose to reuse is September 9th at 28th and 2 Mile in the town of Grand Rapids. Bring your junk, stuff, I mean.
Give me that one more time, Bill, the 8th?
The 9th, Saturday the 9th from 8 until 2, 28th and 2 Mile.
Okay.
You bring anything you want, we recycle it, give it away, whatever.
Yeah, we're gonna, Marcia, Sarah will be going on before our next meeting, so we hope people all come and attend. I think things will be working all the way right. Carol Kerper is on sponsorship drive, and I guess she's doing quite well for us financially for it. So the last report, so there's some light at the end of the tunnel on that. So I hope you people all show up and give us a visit someday. So.
And as last note, some of you might know this, the articles you had on parliamentary procedure and call to order that Michael Blaski just retired from the Wisconsin Counties Association, had his retirement party about a week ago. His wife moved to Manhattan 3 years ago, and he's following her this month. So finally talked to him that. So I'm not sure John Hokemer, who most of you know, will probably continue with those articles. John is also a polished parliamentarian. With nothing else to do, motion to adjourn. Hamilton, second by LaFontaine. All in favor? Aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you.